That was a wonderful intro song. That was a cover by Calamitous Carl and the Fizzy Lifting Drinks.
Those guys are still around?
Yeah. I mean, they're a little underground, but they're active and they keep it going.
You know,
we are here. Oh, go ahead.
I just haven't heard about them since, like, man, that was years ago. They played some gig at some bar out in some town in northern Utah, Garland, somewhere, and yeah, just haven't heard of them since.
Garland is where all the madness goes down. Fakosha played there. They got pornography completely covering the bathroom walls, so you know it's a cool place.
Oh, yeah.
This is Primus. Episode... Yes, they do. This is episode 5 of the Jacob Wayne Show. We are recording later in the evening. I am about a 2-drink tipsy Jacob Wayne this episode. And we're a little more loosey-goosey on this one because it's a special episode. I'm going to introduce our guest in just a little bit here, but just kind of wanted to go over some brief updates. Do you have any updates on your end, Kellen?
Well, nothing too big. I did actually post on Facebook for the first time in like years on a
Mother of God
on some kind of political post, and it was terrible. I immediately regretted it, and won't be back. So thanks, Facebook.
Yeah, I tend to use Facebook and Instagram a lot to promote my artwork and other things like that, and I like to write out my thoughts. That's kind of how I deal with things in my life. And usually if something crazy in politics happens, I kind of go nuts and write a bunch of paragraphs, and then I scrutinize it for about an hour, and then I post it, and I feel dirty, even if I agree with everything I just posted. Because it just feels, argumentative and anxiety-inducing, I guess.
Yeah, see, mine wasn't even mine. It was on like another post, which is even worse. Just engaging the trolls in the pits of despair.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking of those pits of despair, we have an election coming up pretty soon. And I have decided we are not going to talk about politics on this podcast until after the presidential election. Here's my reasoning for this. Every podcast I listen to throughout the week, whether they're comedy podcasts or news podcasts, have been talking about the coronavirus or the presidential election, and Trump specifically, and kind of the character he is. And I realized that I'm just a walking ball of nerves and anxiety because that's most of what I'm listening to. So I don't think any of you would want to hear my take on it right now because it's far too emotions-based, I guess. So I'm just going to leave the subject alone until after the election. And then once we have the election, no matter how it turns out, we'll have an entire episode of politics and we'll exorcise the demons.
Get it all out.
Yeah.
That
so, yeah. That works for you?
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. And yep, there's plenty other places if you do want to listen to politics. You can listen just about anything else, and they're talking about it. So, yep.
All right. Well, if there's no other updates to get into, we can introduce our guest this week. That sound good for you, Kellen?
Let's do it.
All right. So we have mentioned that we might have my buddy Neal on. He's a He's a good buddy of mine and Kellen's. And I guess first of all, how do we know each other, Neal?
Hello.
Hi.
I think we first met just over at Chucky and Keisha's place.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing a portrait of our friend Tyler.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Was that the first time we met each other?
I believe so. We might have ran into each other before because we went to the same high school, but I don't think we met officially till after high school.
Did you go to Skyview?
Oh, no, never mind. I thought you went to Logan.
No, I was a Smithfield boy.
I don't even spend a lot of time out there. I had a lot of friends at Smithfield, but
Yeah. Yep, we're out in cowboy country.
Yeah.
and we definitely had some similar friends, but
That's true.
we didn't get together till later.
Yeah, I remember talking to you at a couple parties, and it was always enjoyable, and I liked you. But I don't think we really started a friendship and a dialogue until I visited, like, Fort Collins even. I feel like that's when we really bonded. And that was me coming out to visit Fort Collins before I moved here. And you used to live here, correct?
Yeah, I lived there for 3 years.
All right. Yeah. So, Neal, like me and Kellen, are Logan, Utah boys.
You.
And whoop, whoop, whoop.
435.
But yeah, I suppose, right at the beginning of this thing, a lot of our guests are going to be people from a similar area, and that's fine. And I still think that the Logan, Utah perspective is a very interesting one. There's something unique about it compared to the rest of the country.
Yeah. It's a weird town.
Do you feel that way about Logan, or are you kind of like, it's just like any other city?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I've done quite a lot of travel this last couple of years for work, and a lot of places have unique perspective. I think Logan has a really different, unique perspective because there's like a good dichotomy. I don't know, a good dichotomy, but a strong dichotomy.
Yeah.
That's true.
There's instead of like multiple cliques, we have like Mormons and non-Mormons essentially.
Yeah.
And the town is slowly swinging more like the non-Mormons. There's just more and more of them popping up now. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's getting cooler.
Yeah, it's definitely changing. But every place I've ever been always has like 10 or more groups of strong different things going on,
Right. No, yeah, and I think with the even though there's that strong dichotomy, you still interact and work with one side or the other. Like, there's plenty of people that are in what might be called like the alternative scene of Utah, that you got plenty of Mormon friends and probably have a Mormon family and still love them and interact with them, but it does definitely create an interesting pool of ideas and ways of living.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So what is it that you do for work, Neal?
I work in cloud management software.
See, that's sexy to me. I don't know about anybody else, but that kind of gets me going.
Right. My
think
old
it's a cool
title
thing.
used to be super sexy. I used to be the solutions architect.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah.
Now I work in pre-sales.
All right.
Yeah.
I dig it. And I mean, I know that's allowed you to travel to some really cool places.
Oh yeah.
What kind of places have you hit up?
Mostly I've been to London 3 times, and then Ukraine once.
Yeah.
And Portland, Florida, San Jose, and then Iowa
cool.
was a really fun place actually. Never thought I'd have so much fun in Iowa.
Nice.
What was the funnest thing there?
Just sitting at the bar, talking to locals, having a really one of the best burgers I've had ever.
Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sweet. That being said, I mean, I feel like maybe our listeners have gotten to know you a little bit better, and we definitely hope to have you on more episodes in the future. But this initial decision to have you on was sparked from a small conversation we had a couple weeks back. And you had mentioned that you were watching or had watched the movie The Martian.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that was a pretty good movie. It was like Matt Damon, Ridley Scott movie. I think it won Best Picture. It got nominated.
That's the only award it won that year, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I did. I've been looking this up, been doing some research.
And so I was like, I thought that was a pretty solid movie. And what did you think about it?
It started out being like kind of all right. Yeah, I had heard. I think I watched a video from like Scott Manley, one of my favorite guys on YouTube. The fucking enjoyed it. And thought there was like some good stuff in it. But when I watched it, there was just a lot of stuff in there that really rubbed me the wrong way.
Okay. And so I suppose that leads to my next question is what is about the movie like kind of rubbed you the wrong way? What was the reason it did that?
I think the main kind of overarching thing, what I figured out over, especially watching it this last time and kind of scrutinizing it a little bit heavier, was that there's parts of the movie where it tries to take itself real seriously and realistic, and then other parts of the movie where that's just kind of all out the window, and it doesn't even pay any homage to reality at all.
Okay. And I mean, we can all enjoy movies like Star Wars, and that's like a space fantasy adventure, and
Right, but that one kind of goes all in, It's like, this is a fucking crazy universe, and we're going to do some weird stuff. We're going to shoot lightning out of our fingers. So
they don't do that in The Martian?
Oh, no, they're like, they're trying to they're trying to follow reality.
Okay. Now what I'm basically trying to lead you into is that you are a space enthusiast if I've ever met one. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. It's
I made my company pay for an extra hotel night in Florida so I can go see the Kennedy Space Center.
Nice.
There you go. See, and this has been one of my favorite aspects of our friendship is I thought I was into space. I'm like one of those guys that stumbles across a science article and it's like, ooh, they got new pictures of the Oort cloud, and I'll post that on Facebook, and that'll start an argument somehow.
Yeah.
But when I met you, I was like, oh, okay, this guy knows his stuff. Like,
slightly obsessed, possibly.
Yeah, and I'll be sitting there. Sometimes you'll come stay at our place, and I'll wake up in the morning, I'll have my coffee, and then the next thing I realize, you're telling me about the propulsion on like a satellite and why it has to have a specific. Yeah. See, I can't even finish the sentence. Like, I'm just like, oh shit.
That's a weird mood I find myself in. I end up a lot of mornings sitting there and like watching science YouTube videos or playing Kerbal Space Program.
Yeah, but I love it. I think it's a great thing. Like, I love having. It's like Kellen's like my music knowledge. Like, you both have your extended areas of knowledge, but if I have questions about music or guitar or theory, anything, I'm like, call up Kellen. What's this thing? And with you, I feel like I can really do that with, just space, rockets, NASA, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so when we brought up this Martian film, I was like, yeah, I thought that was pretty good, wasn't it? And you're like, well. And I realized immediately, like, okay, wait. I want to have this conversation on the podcast because I tend, you both know how much I love movies, and I just watch movie after movie after movie. And I think sometimes in my love of what director chose to shoot it this way with this actor, I do get lost on the details, and especially if it's a film that's trying to be realistic, it's going to screw some things up. And I always wonder why studios don't invest more into just hiring, and I know they do it more now, but they like hire scientists to come on and be like, look, just rearrange this and it'll make sense. Like, the way you're doing it, that can't happen. I know that Neil deGrasse Tyson, a guy that a lot of people know, he regularly gets on Twitter and will rip into a movie because they're like, where you had the stars align, it doesn't make sense.
But I don't get into that crazy detail. I'm not going to analyze the backdrop of a movie.
And I appreciate that because sometimes I think, Neil deGrasse Tyson, another Neil, oddly enough, I never realized that.
It's a little pedantic, but yeah.
yeah, a little bit. I love the guy, but yeah, you're just like, all right, take it easy. You're talking about the Titanic.
Yeah.
It's about Leo freezing and dying. It's not about space.
Yeah.
But The Martian is absolutely about space and survival. So, do you mind letting the audience know, if they haven't seen this film, what the plot of the film is?
So yeah, essentially, there's like a group of people who are on the Ares 2 mission, which is NASA's new mission to start exploring Mars by putting a base on it. And there's a sandstorm they're monitoring, and suddenly it starts getting a lot closer, a lot faster, and a lot stronger than they thought it would. So they all go to evacuate. During this time, the dude gets hit by like one of the satellite dishes on the base. It gets ripped off. And the captain goes try to find him, but she can't. So they all take off without him. I think he's dead.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
But he's actually, like, he wakes up, gets his suit. His suit doesn't have a huge thing in it, so he makes it back to the base and starts, like, trying to figure stuff out. But his communications are damaged,
All right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's where the movie starts out at. I did cool
That's
premises,
all.
personally.
First off, what year does it take place?
I think 2035.
Okay. And this has always been an interesting aspect for me with space films, is by what date they think something's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, right off the bat, do you think we'll be on Mars in this capacity by 2035?
I mean, I don't know about in this capacity. It's definitely possible if, like, because the space program's kind of starting to accelerate a little bit now with private space. Mm-hmm. And that opens up the possibility of, yeah, for sure. I mean, it takes between like 6 and 9 months to go to the Mars, depending on like where the transfer window is. But
Okay. And yeah, I promise I won't get that nitpicky, but
yeah,
that's like my initial curiosity all the time with films, is it's like, all right, 2035, we got 15 years to get here.
yeah, it's fairly reasonable, and the stuff that they present there, like the technology they're using, is like pretty reasonable. They're using a lot of modern day technology in this, and I imagine we're still going to be using the types of LCD screens we use right now in 2035. We're not going to have like the weird like glass hologram interface like a lot of sci-fi movies use.
Right. And I mean, there's always like the classic examples. Another Ridley Scott movie, The Martian, was directed by Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And I think that movie takes place in like 1997 or so. Like maybe it's 2020 or something, but yeah, you go back and watch it and you're like, oh, really? We're going to be there, huh?
Yeah.
And it's just always been a fascinating element to me. But so this windstorm comes through. I saw this movie maybe right after it came out on DVD or something. The movie came out in 2015. And so that was the only time I watched it. I do remember liking it. But that initial premise of just the storm comes through, he survives that storm, but now he's all alone. Up to that initial plot starter, everything makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm like totally on board. Like I remember watching this movie, I turned it on, had a few drinks, and smoked a little bit, sat down watching this, and I was like into it the first little bit, because of this kind of stuff. It set a really good dramatic, like good scenario that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Yeah.
So, what was the first moment when you watched this movie that you're like, oh boy, what are they doing here?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I think there's a couple little small moments. First off, when you see Jeff Daniels as the director of NASA, I mean, not to say that Jeff Daniels is a bad actor, but I just think that's the best choice for the director of NASA. Just because
they should.
Yeah, well, he still speaks like Dumber, Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, it's like he should have had Jim Carrey as his assistant. Like, oh, let me get that cord out from around here. Like, oh.
Yes, but then at the same time, you have Matt Damon being the jokester as the main astronaut. So it, can't really. But I did write in my notes when I was kind of watching this a little drunkenly last night that Scott Bakula would have been a better choice even.
Okay, why is that?
Because he looked sort of like Scott Bakula to me at the time, and Scott Bakula can play serious roles a little better.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he's also
Now-
been in like in space-based stuff like Star Trek Enterprise.
Okay. Uh, do astronauts tend to have like a really good sense of humor?
Yes and no.
Like generally speaking?
Yeah, but they're not jokesters.
Yeah, they seem pretty stoic and
They're
like
serious.
They could crack
like,
a line, but it's like, yeah. Anyway, let's get back to business.
Oh yeah, no. Well, if you watch maybe I'll make you watch the next time I come by the Apollo 11 documentary.
Yeah, you should. I've been meaning to watch that.
It's real good. There's some little quips they have in there, but that's kind of like where it goes. They're talking to Mission Command, so they just have like a little quip here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so serious up there, man.
Yeah, it is, dude.
Jokes can't survive in Mars' atmosphere. I think.
No.
That's not what I'm saying either. I'm just like the amount of silliness going on is wild.
Well, let me try to remember this movie. You haven't seen this, right, Kellen?
Yeah, I've never seen it. So
right.
there's a windstorm, and now he's just hanging out on the base alone, eating all the leftover food.
Yeah, so that's kind of the next part of the story. There is he's eating all these leftover rations, and there's enough rations for like 5 people there or 6 people.
Yeah, so he should be good. He has like all the food he needs.
Yeah, but not until the next Ares mission is scheduled. Because as far as he knows, that's when the next one is coming. And luckily, just by chance, he's the botanist.
Oh,
By the way,
convenient. I
they're
do
not-
remember thinking that was convenient.
they're not growing many plants on Mars, by the way, at this time. He makes a greenhouse and starts growing potatoes. And potatoes come from a Thanksgiving dinner that was packed for them by NASA.
Ah.
I see.
He just
Like,
opens it up and cuts the potatoes and plants them because they'll root from that.
Yeah.
And being a botanist, he knows this. But they sent a botanist without actually sending like plants or seeds.
Okay. Because that's about how well I remember this film. I'm thinking like, all right, chapter 2, cans of tuna.
Yeah,
Just sitting there, just eating out of cans. Just like, oh boy.
yeah.
Oh,
And it goes
show
pretty
up
quick, and
sometime soon.
it like scoots pretty quick through that little segment where he's like eating rations or whatever. He like immediately starts growing stuff.
So the soil must just be awesome.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
he does take the poop from everybody. Like, because it's not just like they don't have a sewage system, so they're saving all the poop. And NASA, and traditionally, and this is one little detail that I kind of did enjoy, they package the poop and barcode it, which is something they do on the space station because they analyze human waste. And
Yeah.
that was cool. But then he
Oh,
goes
I
and
thought it was more to like keep it like, that's my shit, man. Don't you put
Oh.
your shit with my shit.
I mean, yeah, in a way, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And also maybe not mixing whatever microbes might be going on is just like, eliminating factors.
Oh, they
But
squeeze
But Matt
in all
Damon's
the
a
science.
communist. He's gonna smush everybody's shit together.
Yeah, so he gets all this shit out and he fertilizes his little garden he's made in his little habitat.
Okay.
And then he's like, oh, I don't know how to get water here. We don't have enough water, and if I use the water in a tank, I'm gonna die. You know?
Yes.
So somehow he knows, like, I don't know, maybe he like looked into it. They didn't show any research phase where he like suddenly knew that dripping hydrazine over an iridium catalyst would cause it to break down into hydrogen, nitrogen, and ammonia. And I had to look this up, of course, because I don't know that shit.
It's like a chemistry thing, yeah?
Yeah, and I mean, I took quite a bit of chemistry, but just not something you learn. That's going to be something you learn dealing with hydrazine, which is a rocket fuel.
Now, he's a botanist, correct?
Yeah, he's a botanist / astronaut.
Okay, so
There'd be a fair
imagine
amount of
he'd-
chemistry and botany.
I would
Yeah,
think
it's-
so, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's possible he was taught about the whole hydrazine stuff, but I don't know.
So
It just seems nice.
Up to this point, it's perhaps all feasible and realistic, but convenient.
Yeah, well, it's convenient that they weren't growing plants there in the first place
Okay.
to make it
Yeah,
more
that's weird.
dramatic.
Right.
That's one thing that kind of was like, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, then the first time he fails with the hydrogen thing, almost blows himself up. More drama.
Yes.
And then he gets it working, for sure. It's all good. And then I do have something here in my notes that AOC definitely sponsored this video. AOC is like a computer monitor company. They make a bunch of other stuff, but mainly you'll see computer monitors made by them.
Ah.
Oh, okay. For a minute, I thought you were saying Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And
No.
I was like, no, we're not talking politics.
No, sorry. No, AOC it's a monitor company. But every time they show a monitor in this movie, it's an AOC brand, and it like makes sure to put that in frame.
Right.
Oh, that's
There's a lot of product placement.
Not a lot of product placement, and it's not like a in-your-face product placement.
Okay.
But it's
Yeah,
kind
I
of like
usually don't notice those as much as most people.
with electronics. I notice them a lot because I'm always because it's really quick, little, easy brand thing to look at, and a lot of movies just scrub the brand off, which I prefer.
Yeah.
But and then the
It
AOC
allows it to
thing
create its own reality.
that leads me into another thing later on that we'll get back to. So
All right. So up to this point, I'm trying to go through my own memories of this film.
Mhm.
It's big drama. Matt Damon survives. And the one line I remember, and it might even be the trailer, but it's like playing music by The Who or Led Zeppelin or something. And then he's
I
like,
wish.
I'm going to science the shit out of this. And
yeah,
it's like,
I have that in my notes.
and, yeah, and then it's just like, oh, we're going to do like a whole movie of like a rock montage of him sciencing to survive.
Right, it kind of is, but it's not rock; it's disco. But
Disco? Really?
That is the music.
that's actually
ABBA?
that's actually has to deal with the next note in my fucking thing here is that the captain was apparently the only one who brought any music
Right.
because he's like he has to listen to disco music the whole time.
It's kind of a fun little joke.
Yeah, but he like keeps listening to it.
Yeah.
Like it's like he just turns it off. He keeps fucking listening to it.
Yeah.
And there's even that one scene where he's like in the rover and he's like, this is officially the least disco song and it's hot stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. But the song has to do with what was happening in the movie. He just dug up the radioactive thing to keep heat in his cabin of his rover, which totally would do that. It's just, oh.
Let me do a little side note real quick though.
Yeah.
My sister bought me Pure Disco and Pure Funk when I was a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
Those were my first two albums. So I might be what you would call a disco aficionado.
Right. And I don't,
For
I don't
some
hate
reason,
disco.
I don't remember it in the movie, so that means
Oh.
it wasn't that memorable.
There was definitely some ABBA in there. There's definitely a scene where there's a cover.
Yeah.
There's an ABBA cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
My two disco questions, just as a side note. Did
Mm-hmm.
they play Shake Your Booty?
I don't think so. No.
And did they play It's Raining Men?
No. No. I think
Well-
Hot Stuff is the most like prominent one you eat that I would say they played.
I think that's how they screwed up. Like, they should have had Matt Damon in the dust storm and he's falling and he's just, it's raining men.
Right?
Like, it would have
Well,
been perfect.
It would have been perfect except for that scene was a really dramatic scene when he was falling around in the dust storm in the beginning.
That's what
Have you
they
ever
needed.
heard the intro to It's Raining Men? It's a very dramatic song.
Really, they should have had the extra scene in there where they're returning to Earth and then coming back in through the atmosphere and it's playing It's Raining Men.
Hallelujah, I'm back on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, see, we should have made this movie.
The most
I
like,
thought that.
Go ahead, go.
the most climactic disco song is probably Donna Summer's version of MacArthur Park. That's got to be like the most part where everything's the grimmest.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
There's another disco song I'm trying to think of now, but I can't think of it, so I won't sidetrack
Yeah.
continually with disco. But that is interesting because I feel like if that had been effective, I'm such a fan of disco that I would have been like, oh, holy shit, this is awesome. But apparently it didn't stick.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, yeah.
it was-
And then actually my next couple of notes here is they have it back in Mission Control where one of the guys is talking about like, man, he's been down there like a month by himself with no contact. What that must do to a man. then it cuts to him, and he's like sitting there listening to disco music, face palming, and he's just like, I hate disco music. It's like, that's the worst that's happened to him so far, is he just can't stand the fucking music. And then I think the next scene is where he's like, picks himself up, he's like, I'm going to have to science the shit out of this.
Right.
Yeah. And that's when the science shit starts going.
I think I do remember that. This is the depths of human darkness and being alone. It's like, I don't like this kind of music. It's like me listening to emo stuff. Mm-hmm. I just hurt my eyes falling.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
But, okay. So, yeah, I do remember that. You are helping me remember that it seemed like, like everybody seems to be pretty happy.
Yeah.
Considering the circumstances.
Right. And especially the guy who's stranded on the planet they don't have any plan to get him back yet.
Yeah.
And there's, for some reason, not anything in orbit to get him back or anything, which is awkward protocol for NASA to have.
Why is that?
Yeah.
They always have an escape plan.
Some kind of contingency?
Yeah. So like when they did the Apollo missions, instead of just flying a thing there and landing on the ground, they flew 2 things there, broke them in half, landed one on the ground, and had to come back up and dock in with the main thing and come home. Because it adds redundancy.
So the moon landing definitely happened.
Oh, I mean...
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, many moon landings happen.
Yeah. No, but
even China's landed on the moon, not with people, but...
Right. I suppose, I guess when I think about astronaut stuff and like a lot of movies, the way they put it, they're like, yep, we're just sending them up there, and if they die, it's just like, it's dangerous.
Yeah. But they absolutely do not think that way, and it's at all.
Okay.
Which, they try to show that in some other ways. That's what I get back to with the whole thing. Where, like, in some ways they try to go with the real thing, and some ways they just, like, make it up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I do know that this is a movie that was adapted from a book.
Yes.
And have
I'm
you
gonna
read
have
the
to
book,
read.
or
No,
are you aware
I
of it?
think I'm going to have to read this book. It's by John Weir. Or Andy Weir. Andy Weir.
All right. And I guess that's always the question is how much can the director do with the material that they're working from?
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, to get on him for a minute, he's made some of my favorite movies.
Absolutely.
Kind of near the tail end of his career, I kind of don't get it. Like, I don't know why he does the things he does.
I think we have to start looking at the producers. Mm-hmm. Because there was like 4 or 5 producers on this.
Okay.
One of them had worked with him on previous movies. I'm pulling up the list here, but like a couple of them had worked on like some off weird stuff. Like one of them worked on Deadpool, which leads me to believe that's where a lot of the jokes came from.
Okay.
One of them did like the X-Men movies and Fantastic Four, which is probably where they get a lot of good action stuff comes from. Mm-hmm. One guy worked on Alien with them, or Aliens. And another guy that worked on Alien Covenant. And yeah, so it's a good like batch of people, and then they also have the guy who worked on Deadpool in there.
All right.
Nice.
Like the writer or something?
Producer, I think.
Producer.
Let's see.
Okay.
Aditya Sood.
So, I suppose up to this point, he's planted potatoes. He listening to disco music. He's
and hating
at
it,
the
but
depths
still
of
listening
his
to
depression.
it. Yeah, his whatever depression there may be.
Yeah,
is not sad at all, and that also reminds the sunset scenes. Okay, like they have the aerial shot of like the base, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is like somewhere in Jordan or South Utah, and I looked up, it is in Jordan, and then there's another scene where like,
whoop, whoop.
yeah,
Sorry,
no, I looked on the sunset there, and it's just a picture of an Earth sunset.
Oh my god, that's what...
And that's the thing that bothers me a bit is we very much know what a Martian sunset looks like. We've had rovers on there for a while. We've had a lot of pictures of it.
All right.
Yeah.
You could even just color correct the scene and make it a Martian sunset, but they didn't
Are you
do that.
saying the sun is smaller on Mars than it is on Earth?
No, it's a different color on the horizon.
Different color. Okay.
So the sunset when it's here, it goes into like that deep orange. Normally it's like kind of a white yellow in the sky, and then in the blue sky. Mars has more of a little bit of a red sky, but more grayish depending on whatever. But the sunset ends up being like a light blue color. And that's like, yeah.
That's just due to the chemical makeup in the atmosphere?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it has a totally different composition, different density and everything, so it doesn't separate the light the same way that ours does.
Cool. Do you know what chemical difference there is, or is that a little too specific?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know there's more carbon dioxide in Mars. Still nitrogen and not really hardly any oxygen, and it's a lot thinner. So our thicker atmosphere can break up a lot more, and that's why we get the gradients of colors probably here.
Okay. So essentially, Matt Damon is listening to disco in Jordan and making a greenhouse.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, I feel like I remember this, but I guess the whole goal of the film was to like try to make science fun, right? Like I was trying to get people to give a shit about science. Do you feel like it accomplished that?
I don't know if it was trying to. I think this movie is just trying to make money. I don't think it's trying to teach anybody anything or trying to get anyone excited about anything.
Okay.
Because as we'll find out later, it does not really make NASA into a great academy. Like the movie doesn't paint them in a perfect light.
I remember reading a review at the time where they're like, The Martian tries to make science fun and exciting, and I think also at the time, and Hollywood's continued to keep trying, but they made movies like Gravity and The Martian, like they were really trying to kind of get people more into space-themed subject matter.
Yeah.
And I think to a degree that was like to engage with science based on climate change and other elements like that.
Possibly, yeah, or just straight up space exploration, because we've had a lot of the best advancements in modern technology come from space exploration.
Right. Tang, for one. I'll always remember that one.
Yeah, dude, yeah. I think Silly Putty as well.
Ooh.
I think that was also an invention from the moon.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways, he go, I think it's not the Curiosity. It's one of the probes that we landed on Mars. Not a rover, it was just a stationary little guy. But it would take a bunch of pictures and stuff. And he was supposedly somewhere near that, so he drove his little rover over there and found it. And digs it up, brings it home, and rigs it up to one of the batteries, because apparently they still use the same power connectors, which is something that is totally feasible for NASA to do.
Oh, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. But
everybody else, please follow suit.
Yeah. Well, and for over the course of like 30 years, they use the same connector. But then he gets some way, he activates it and stuff, and then they, back on Earth, start seeing it pipe back up. They start seeing its signals come back in again. I don't know if they'd really be looking for it, but I'm sure there's a computer sitting there listening for it for some random chance, you know?
I'll bet they use this monitor all those frequencies.
Yeah.
So I kind of forgot. They didn't know he survived initially. He had to signal him.
Yeah, and they there's this chick in, I don't know if she's in JPL or if she's at the mission control, but she's looking at the satellite imagery of Mars, because we do have a satellite around Mars that's taking pictures of it all the time, and that's still there, operational. So she sees that the rover has moved from one spot to another and gets one guy on the line, and I guess that's probably why they start listening to more stuff like this.
Is that Jessica Chastain's character? The redhead?
No, she's blonde.
Oh.
Jessica Chastain is the captain of the Ares 2 mission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember she was in that, but I couldn't remember what her role was.
Yeah, and she gets a little bit. She was the one who went to go find him in the sandstorm because she was the captain, and then leaves, and then you don't see her for a little while.
Okay. Yeah, she worked in NASA in the movie Interstellar, which is another movie we'll have to do. But,
Probably, yeah. It's
So I think I was mixing those two up.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he's created the signal.
Yeah, he gets the rover back there.
Survived.
Yeah. And so they somehow get the signal reestablished and stuff, and the camera pops up and starts moving around. And so he writes on a little thing like, "Are you receiving me?" And then puts 2 signposts on the side, yes or no. And the camera points at the yes thing. And so he's like, oh, well, if I have this thing, I can set up a circle around here for them to talk to me. Right? But there's too many letters in the alphabet to have 26. So, or 20, 27 or whatever, because you have to question mark and shit. But he's like, oh, someone on this ship is bound to have a hexadecimal table for ASCII values.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
ASCII values. I mean, I'd have them a couple laying around my house right now.
Right? So he knows exactly what those are, even though he doesn't know them. You know? Like, I know the number A is 34 in hexadecimal off the top of my head, I think. I could be one or two off.
How many PhDs or degrees does he have by now?
Probably a couple.
Botany, chemistry.
Hexadecimally.
Well, and you don't even really have to have like a degree to be like ASCII table hexadecimal, but you just have to be involved in computer science in some way.
All right.
And then, that's fine. Maybe that's like a hobby of his. But he goes and he's
realistic,
like, oh,
but
I know this one chick
convenient.
who would definitely have this stuff. And so he goes and gets her laptop, and he's like, oh, this super fucking nerd here is going to have this information. And then he looks at it, he's like, oh, this computer is like the epitome of loneliness.
And then disco starts playing.
Well, I think it might even be playing in the background during this scene.
Okay.
But then
Disco's now the epitome of loneliness, by the way, in my brain.
Yeah. Well, then he sets her laptop next to his laptop and drags the file over from one to the other. That's something that bothers me in a lot of movies. It happens a lot, but it's like, come on. So she had this file, and then not only does she have an ASCII table that has the hexadecimal values for all the ASCII, like the letters and numbers. She had it in a value, or in a diagram that was like in a circle with radial values, including the question mark, which is exactly what he needed to build the thing around the thing. So instead of just like pulling up the information of the hexadecimal and like maybe having a quick little 2-second scene where he's like drawing something, she just already has the fucking thing ready.
Well, he doesn't have an art degree, too.
He has a notepad and pencil, obviously. He uses them a fucking ton.
He's only one Matt Damon.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And he's got to get a line about making fun of nerds in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Because, yeah, I love that. That is something I love in a fucking Hollywood movie. They're like, what a bunch of nerds, right? Well, I'm a nerd, but I'm cool.
In a movie about Mars.
Yeah. It's like we still got to have, like, this jock asshole as a leading man.
Yeah.
And then, I suppose the movie should have almost had, like, a guy who's just, like, socially awkward, but he's just like, no, he's badass.
Or, just a badass dude who's, maybe socially awkward just because of, like, he's so stoic and doesn't trust a lot of people besides the people he's, like, trained heavily with or something weird, you know?
They should have got that guy from Love on the Spectrum.
Michael?
Like, potatoes don't grow every day, especially on Mars.
Dude, Michael would have been a really good cast for this, actually. It would have been a better movie.
Yeah, I'm in. 3 hours long.
Yeah. But then, so they use, there's a whole montage of him talking to them through this rover, through the probe. And they get away so he can, like, hack the rover so they can have a text-based connection so they can just type to him. That's totally, like, reasonable because they could just, like, hack it into be a relay into the other antenna. But they they tell him, I start talking to him, and he's like, hey, how do the crew members think that I'm alive? The ones who are floating on their way back from Mars to Earth. And they never told him. And they made the decision not to tell them because they want them to focus on the mission. And that goes into Matt Damon typing back to him like, oh, F this, F that. And that's the first sign where the movie is an absolute refusal to say fuck.
Huh.
What's the movie rated?
I think it's PG-13.
Okay.
Gotta hold tight.
It
You
is
only get one
PG-13.
fuck. You get one fuck. Maybe they've changed that. Maybe you get 2 or 3 these days. But
I think they use the fuck on a mouthing, or maybe the subtitle, because there's a cut you see of him saying what the fuck, but there's no sound to it. But the subtitles are there.
Yeah.
The subtitles say
Maybe-
what the fuck.
maybe we're getting the line wrong. He's like, I'm going to science the fuck out of this.
He says, I'm gonna science the shit out of this. I promise.
Or I'm going to fuck the science out of this.
Yeah. That's a more apt line that he should have said in the beginning of this
And
movie.
then the disco kicks in and you're like,
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, then in his message, it's like F this, F that. But then on the screen, it's like F ... blah, blah, blah. And then the guy reading is like, oh, an F word this and F word in this form. And it's like, dude.
Luna gets that and fa.
Yeah, it's like a grammar joke. I know.
Yeah. Grammar jokes.
Yeah,
They have their place.
they're fine.
I know that they can be good sometimes.
But I'm already distracted on why you won't say fuck.
Yeah.
That you're making this stupid joke.
Dude, if I'm trapped up on Mars by myself, I'm using fuck a lot.
That is the time to use it.
Well, and he did.
Yeah.
He definitely did.
There's no FCC on Mars. They don't even care.
Yeah.
So, what point of the movie are we at now? Is this about midway through, second act?
Oh, I think this is probably about a third of the way through. So we're probably
Okay.
getting into the second act here.
All right.
So yeah, that first act was him establishing him, being stuck there, getting communications back. And then act 2 would be like the determining and sending of the rescue mission, maybe.
Okay. So, at the end of Act 1, where are you at as a viewer? Are you like, fuck this movie yet? Or are you like, okay.
Oh, I'm watching this because I need to know what else is going on.
Right.
You know, like they haven't made too many like fuck ups here, so I can kind of like deal with it. You know, there's like the fun little jokes, the disco music, and I can handle that. It's whatever.
It's all where it's headed.
Yeah. And then the not growing potatoes thing is like something I didn't think of until like after. I was like, why weren't they growing plants in the first place that they sent a botanist?
Yeah.
It's just not something that didn't occur to me initially when I watched the movie the first time.
They had him there for his chemistry degree. He just happened to have this botany degree. And
or
talked
he
about.
just cracks good jokes.
Yeah, everybody's got to have a Matt Damon around.
Yeah.
Matt
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Act 2. What are we getting into?
Well, they're talking about like sending another mission back. They're trying to like push the Ares 3 mission forward so they can get him back faster. And
Okay.
they're talking about stuff, and there's a note here where they say the home and transfer window. Like we're lining up for the next home and transfer window, and that's actually a real fucking thing. The home and transfer window. The guy named Holman, I can't remember his first name, probably Albert or something. He did a lot of calculations on transferring from one planet to another in our solar system, and how to on the most efficient times to do that. The shortest time is the one that takes the least amount of fuel. Everything, and so that's a real thing. I mean, nobody would fucking know that unless you like studied a little bit about it or played Kerbal Space Program for a long time.
Yeah, it seems like something they could have just come up with in the writing room or whatever.
Yeah, or just left it out because like you can try to appeal to someone who is in the demographic of me, who's a space enthusiast and would know what a home and transfer window is. Mm-hmm. But then you're gonna fuck it the whole rest of the movie.
Well, this does raise an interesting question of, do you think that the studios are afraid of losing, like, if they were to take just a minute to explain that, or to like make stuff more scientifically accurate, do you think they're afraid that like the 15-year-old boy they're trying to appeal to maybe is just like, oh my god, science is so fucking boring? Like that they're just gonna like run away from the movie, like, ugh. Like, I don't understand why Hollywood films don't try to lean into it more, because I think it just adds to the film.
Yeah, and you can present it in a cool way. You don't have to present it in a dry, unpalatable way.
Yeah, like, life itself is not dry and unpalatable.
Yeah, and neither does space have to be.
Yeah, you got to find the right way to show it.
Yeah. So,
anyways.
So, yeah, they're talking about this thing, scheduling out, and they're like, talking about, we can push this back, we can shave this time off, we can get it done here in these amount of days. And he's got like, we're gonna be there on day 600 and whatever, and he's got food until day 700 and whatever. So we're cutting this close. And then it's like, that's assuming nothing goes wrong, and the camera fucking zooms in on his face, and then it cuts back to Matt Damon tidying up his rover and about to go walk into the fucking habitat.
All right.
What do you think is gonna happen?
Matt Damon's gonna be like a badass. He's gonna go like punch the potato till it grows more.
Yeah, if only. No, an alarm starts going off and the fucking habitat like blows up.
What?
Holy shit!
Yeah, which it literally happens 5 seconds after the director of NASA says, "That's assuming nothing goes wrong."
And then ABBA kicks in.
If only. Yeah. Dancing Queen.
Dancing Queens. Everything's exploding. That
Yeah.
should have been the It's Raining Men song, actually.
Yeah.
Everything's burning and just like, oh no.
Well, there's no burning because there's no oxygen anymore. It's all out.
Right.
It's all out in Mars now, and
I was thinking
all
we
of it
were in
died.
Jordan still, you know.
Yeah,
I forgot we're on Mars. That's right.
yeah. And then
Sunsets fooled me.
his helmet gets a crack in it, and he patches it with duct tape, which is totally realistic again.
That works. I wondered about that. When I saw that, I remember like, that's going to work?
No,
How did he get time to patch it though?
well, you have duct tape on your suit. That's like part of your suit.
Okay.
You have a
Wouldn't,
roll
like,
of
the
duct tape on
second-
your spacesuit.
It wouldn't like the second that the crack happened, it like kill it, like he'd already be gone.
Oh, it's pretty small, and there's a little bit of pressure on Mars, and then his suit has a reservoir of gas that's venting into the suit the whole time.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it's trying to keep up pressure, and during the scene is sitting there like 30% oxygen left, 20%
Yeah.
oxygen left.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then he gets down to like 1% right before he duct tapes it.
Yeah, something really close.
The ticking clock. That's in every movie.
Yep. He gets the tape on there right in time.
So I do remember that. Like, it's funny as you go through this how much I'm like, wow, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. Don't remember that. But the duct tape thing, I remember that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about it.
But it's totally legitimate. Like, duct tape is super strong. It's relatively cheap. And NASA, absolutely, if they can prove something will work out in space or something that we already make here on Earth, they'll absolutely set it up.
Oh,
Yeah,
That's way less cost for them.
for sure.
So, like, yeah, that makes sense. And even if they make some of their own special type of duct tape, they're going to use that type of thing. It's a woven fabric with an adhesive on it that patches shit up miraculously.
And they dip it in Tang. Tang
Yeah.
is the powerful adhesive.
Tang flavored duct tape.
Just I'm gonna lick some duct tape, man.
Yeah, dude.
so NASA has like ultimate gaffer's tape. That stuff is expensive for
Probably, yeah.
normal, so it's probably just like that times 10.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of gaffer tape they really have, man.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, they're talking to get the wrong lunch, get all boosted up, and the movie's like chugging along at this point. So
Yeah.
they're getting the thing ready, and they're like, "Oh, we have these like 16 days, 6 days to mount the satellite, and 10 days for inspection. We can cut down the mounting to 3 days." Okay, great. And then the director's like, "How many times do we find problems during these inspections?" And then like, "Are you saying we shouldn't like not go through these or whatever?" And he's like, "Oh, I mean, we have like, you save 10 days." So they don't do the inspections.
That's not NASA.
Yeah.
Cuts back to the astronaut, And he's sitting there like, oh, they told me to ration myself further because I need an extra 4 days out of my rations because of whatever. And I ran out of ketchup last week. So I'm sprinkling Vicodin on my potato and nobody can stop me. And then he fucking eats a Vicodin with his potato.
Everybody in Idaho's like, we.
Yeah.
That's actually Idahoan cuisine.
Right. Vicodin on potatoes.
Yeah.
It's just their salt.
Yeah.
They're grown on the red planet. Them's the reddest of reds.
They're trying to say why people don't know it's seasoning.
Oh, that's terrible.
So he's Vicodin on a potato, listening to disco.
And they're
Duct
about to
tape on his
send they're about to launch a rocket they haven't inspected.
Right,
boy.
because government cutting corners. It's like that's probably what they're doing. They do that in movies a lot too.
They don't talk about budget. That's the crazy thing. They don't really talk about, oh, we don't have the budget for that. They're just like, oh, we don't have time for that. We can't wait 10 days
Right.
to fucking send this mission.
Safety.
Okay, so they're not trying to make some statement about like, they're not as efficient.
No, and then that's sort of the weird thing. Maybe in 2035 it'll actually be fully funded, and that's fine. But so they get back to Earth, and we're back on the rocket launch, and it's going. They're counting down, and it lifts off, and it's soaring through the air. Everyone's cheering, and then all of a sudden, like a little alarm starts going off, and one guy's like, "We got a shimmy," and everyone stops doing whatever, and they start looking at it, and sure enough, it fucking explodes.
We got shimmies.
Yeah. And then they do the classic, you've probably seen it in a bunch of other movies where they say, lock the doors.
Yeah.
And that is something that is done at NASA. Whenever there's a failure during launch or something, they lock the doors, but it's not something that the director has to say. There are guards at the doors, and they lock them immediately.
That's like their job.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're like, this is a government thing, technically. And if there's tampering with it, it could be espionage. So anyone who's in that control room could be part of that.
Okay.
So that's why they lock the doors. It doesn't happen very often, of course. We don't have a lot of failed launches nowadays, especially with NASA, because frankly, they don't do launches very much.
And they do a lot of testing and checking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's been another explosion. How many explosions is this?
3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, then there's the tearjerker scene I have written here, which I think I remember was that he was writing a letter to the captain of the mission that she's going to have to tell his family that he died, and he knows that that's hard, but also that he did a really good job at it and he was just fucking awesome. Make sure to tell him that.
Yeah.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that probably wasn't that bad. He can usually pull that stuff off.
No, it was a good scene.
Well.
I just kind of think it was dumb because it was like this combination of, oh, I'm so sad, my family, I miss my family, I love them, but also just make sure they know I'm awesome.
Just make sure to tell them I fucked that science so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's a dumb thing. But then, all right, you're gonna love this part, Jacob. You might remember this part.
Okay.
Cuts to a scene in China.
Oh.
And they're watching this.
Wall.
They're watching this broadcast of the fucking American rocket blowing up, and the one lady is like, I think she's like the executive chief director, and she's talking to the chief director of their space program, and she's like, "Hey, they blew this thing up, and we like have this other rocket that we could let them use and put their thing on it instead of sending our package up there, and that might be cool." And he's like, "Well, why haven't they approached us about this?" And it's like, well, because our rockets are classified, you dumbass. But we're just so we could maybe do this. Maybe we'll have some cooperation in the future.
Yeah,
working
who
with
would
each
have
other.
thought the two major economies in the world working together and cooperating
Yeah, and it's just
by
who would have thought that
2035?
China out of the blue would be watching our news and think, hey, maybe we should take our Tiantian rocket that we spent so much money developing and are about to put part of our new space station up and save one American who's on Mars.
Right.
So this was the point where you were like, all right.
Well,
This
I
is
started to be like,
right
oh,
on the
okay,
money.
okay. Like, this is getting a little wacky. I highly doubt
Well,
China would do something like that.
we're well aware that the movie market in China has grown by leaps
Yes.
and bounds.
Yes.
So
I'm
most
getting.
Hollywood
I'll get back
films-
to the China thing. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
Definitely gotta make them look like good guys. Like, we're just here to
Because
help, baby.
that scene ends where China is just talking about, oh, maybe we could help them, and it immediately cuts back to fucking Jeff Daniels sitting there on the phone, and all of it, his whole line and the whole scene is, yes, I understand, thank you, and he hangs up the phone. And he goes, yes,
Yes.
then it's over, and it goes on to some other fucking scene where they're talking about the satellite they're going to send up on the Chinese rocket. Sorry, go ahead.
What I can't help but just picture before we move on from that aspect is just like TikTok didn't exist when this movie got made.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like picture like Jeff Daniels on his TikTok, just like, just like making like a TikTok video. And people in China are all like, maybe we could stop spying on Americans dancing for like 4 months and put all of our efforts into saving this one American on Mars.
Right?
Like, come on, we could do this.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Well, it's just their space program. But they're in like the meeting I'm talking about, though, what they're going to send up on this Chinese rocket, and it's a thing called Elrond. And the one
L.
guy
Ron
pipes
Hubbard?
in, no, Elrond with a D on the end.
Okay.
So that
And the
when he
guy-
like punched somebody, it's like, you just got Elrond.
Well, it's a Lord of the Rings reference.
Oh.
And they tell that to you and then shove it in your face. The guy,
I don't remember that character.
well, like,
Elrond?
no, that's the secret meeting. It means secret meeting in like Elvish or something, and that's the meeting they had that they decided to destroy the One Ring. And they explain all that in the movie just to make sure that you know that they're making Lord of the Rings references.
Nice.
So you know.
Yeah.
This is a thing that's in the lore, so don't question us later.
On top of that, it's all the dudes in the room making the joke, and the one chick is like, I hate you guys.
I hate dwarfs so
So-
much.
So I have written here in my notes, Lord of the Rings joke with the boys.
Oh, yeah.
Boys!
Oh, God.
Cracking up some J.R.R. Tolkien with the boys.
Yeah. And then it goes into a montage with disco music.
Yeah.
Kind of an upbeat disco music, which is weird because we're getting ready to send a rescue mission to a dude who just fucking is going to die if this doesn't work.
Well, you
know.
gotta stay upbeat in moments like
gotta-
that. You know.
Stay
Yeah.
alive. Stay alive.
Staying alive.
There's... Dude, that would have been a good song for this movie. I don't think they used it.
Man, like all the good disco songs, there's like, man,
Yeah. Well, I think around the same time, they're cutting to scenes of the people on the thing coming back from Mars, the rest of his crew. And they know that he's alive and whatever. And someone sends them this little secret message that's like, your daughter's birthday, whatever, sends it to the engineer. So he gets the computer lady to go open it. And it's like some fucking propulsion plans for them to slingshot around the Earth and go back to Mars and pick him up and then come back. And they're like, oh, but that would be mutiny, and they could do like the remote control stuff. Like Mars could just, or NASA could just take control of our ship and make us not do that. So they go through this whole thing of fucking, all right, well, I think we're gonna, go back to save this guy. And that would force NASA's hand to launch this thing to be a resupply mission for us rather than launch a rescue mission to him.
yeah.
So they'd fucking do that.
Oh, shit.
It's
This is making all kinds of decisions. Just
it's so like such a small part of the movie because I didn't even write it much in my notes because it's like I watched it a couple times and it was like that's this happens, and I'm going to remember reading it through these notes, but it's quick.
Yeah.
They don't spend a lot of time on it. It's just like, oh yeah, no, we'll slingshot back around Earth and come back or whatever. And then NASA's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll send up this resupply mission. Yeah, it's fine.
Well, they assumed the audience had all seen Armageddon and
Right.
slingshotting around
And
the moon
I mean,
to get to the
slingshotting
asteroid.
works.
So they're like, people understand it.
Slingshotting works. Slingshot, it's used very much. It's very much used in space movies and stuff, and it's a very common thing. I do it all the time in Kerbal Space Program.
Nice.
It's useful.
And there's like a lot of concepts in space about space travel specifically, I guess, where if you're a writer and you're like, what's like a cool sounding maneuver or thing to do in space, and then they're like, well, there's this slingshot thing that I put it in the movie.
Yep. Yeah. You don't have enough fuel? Slingshot maneuver.
Slingshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, they're going through this montage, and then it goes to it's a mission center, but it's in China, so it's all red, and there's like all this different decoration around the whole room, and they're the one guy is sitting there talking to him like, we haven't done it this way since Apollo 9. So it's like hard for me to decide if it's actually taking little jabs at the China thing, or maybe it's like China's like, no, we've been doing it great with the old ways, or I don't know.
Maybe it's a USSR reference with the red.
I have no idea, because there's parts of me feels like this movie is China funded.
Could be, and I will say, Chinese cinema is great at taking really dire situations and then having poppy dance music kick in. And like, let's all go fighting love.
Yeah. There's definitely parts of this movie that feel like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, what are you saying?
Well, also, if they're trying to garner a Chinese audience, let's keep it positive. I mean, hey, we don't want any negativity. We don't want to be selling a movie to our people that's like could potentially be negative or critical of anything. Like, we don't want that.
This scene is critical of them because it's the Americans saying, we haven't done it this way since Apollo 9, before we landed on the moon.
See, that's probably just one of those sneaky jokes that they can do.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, it's Apollo, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't know. Maybe they would. What do I know?
Yes. I have no idea. And at this point in the movie, I'm just like, things are flying by me. Just like, oh my God. Yeah. This now. The Chinese thing now. You make fun of these guys.
See, but that's kind of the dork I am, though, too. I do remember watching it. And once again, I don't remember that China was involved. So once again, they introduced a thing that I'm into, and apparently it just didn't make an impact with me. Yep. Like, the movie still is like, Matt Damon goes and, he's like badass montage up on Mars or something. Like, that's all I remember. But now that you're reminding me, I'm like, yeah, when they introduced China, I'm like, oh, I studied this. Like, cool. Like, I'm kind of lame like that with movies. They just have to add one little China element. And I'm like,
They could have had a Chinese astronaut.
That. Yeah. But now that I've got kind of like farther removed from all that I'm like, yeah, that's kind of lame catering to them. But
yeah.
Anyways, let's continue.
Yeah. So this is now where some of the most blaring discrimination from reality comes.
Okay.
Here we go.
I'm ready.
Dude, when they start getting close, though, they start they go in they're getting the docking of the resupply mission as they're swinging around Earth. And normally, I don't know, maybe I made you watch one of these movies or the videos of the docking on the International Space Station where they have.
We watched a docking video together once, but
right, probably not the International Space Station docking video where a dragon comes in for a docking. I just watched a docking video that included dragons, but not this dragon. The Dragon crew capsule from SpaceX. It goes in, it docks autonomously.
Hanging out talking about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, but it goes in full on its own. It lines everything up, and if there's any sort of control that needs to happen, it's from the guy who's like in the control center on the International Space Station who has remote control of it. And so in this movie, the thing is coming in for docking, and I think they might show some guy like controlling it, or maybe they're just like letting it come in for automated thing, which totally realistic by that point. But the thing that's not is there's a dude standing there with the docking port and airlock wide open. He has no tether. He has no like EVA like fucking suit where he can maneuver around in any sort of way. He has a suit on, but not like a jetpack suit.
He just does it different than everybody else. He's
Yeah. And so he's like, maybe hold on to the bar on the side of the thing, watching this thing come in and come in for a docking, like as if he's going to fucking grab it. It's a few, like probably a few thousand kilograms.
It's like helping your dad back up a trailer. It's like little right.
Yeah. And I understand that you're in space, but if anything's going to adjust anything, it's going to be the actual thing trying to dock itself to the ship.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely no protocol at all that any NASA employee is going to be near or in the same bay as the docking port while docking is happening in the event of a failure.
Yeah.
But that guy's sitting there like not tethered. Like if he moves himself a little bit wrong, he's just gone forever.
Off into space.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
Well, he's a rebel like that, you know what I mean? Like,
no, they all do it.
Him.
All of them do it. It's not just this.
If you're going into space, you're a rebel, man. You're like badass, like Matt Damon.
Well, that brings me to my next point. He starts calling himself the space pirate in this part of the movie.
Right.
Oh, Lord.
Where he's like, technically, this thing I'm on is owned by Americans, and so when I leave it, I'm on international waters, and I go and I commandeer this other vessel for myself, and so technically, I'm a space pirate.
Dude, how awesome would it be, though, if that's where he starts to lose his mind? It's like, I'm not one of these nerds. I'm a space pirate.
No,
he just puts on like an eye patch that he doesn't need and just like...
I think his Vicodin supplies ran out.
Yeah.
I think that he's been taking Vicodin with every potato, and it's running out now.
Yeah.
Because you can see he's getting like little marks on his skin.
Mm-hmm.
There's like little red marks on his skin. They never explain that.
Huh.
I'm like positive he became an opiate addict on Mars.
Yeah, wouldn't that be like a way, like he's listening to disco, he thinks he's a pirate.
Yeah.
He's addicted to drugs. Like
he's withdrawing from fucking just having Vicodin multiple times a day. Like, yeah, I'm a space pirate, motherfucker.
Giant beard. He's like, no, leave me up here.
Some call me the gangster of love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's getting pretty close to the end of the movie at this point, honestly.
Well, we have been, not to rush you, we are getting over our usual time frame, so let's jump into Act 3.
So yeah, well, I mean, this is probably in Act 3.
Okay.
A little bit anyways, but so...
A little bit.
They go on
he's a pirate now, he's an addict, duct tape on his helmet, growing potatoes,
they probably got a spare helmet by now.
Listening to disco.
But he's figured out he needs like a certain amount of energy supply to get back to this other thing so he can go in orbit for those guys who are slingshotting back to pick him up so he can go and meet up with them. You can rendezvous with them in orbit. So he has to take like this big old journey, and there's one of the scene about him doing that. They explain how he does it even. He goes and fucking gets the solar panels and he sleeps in this time and he goes on more and then he gets the solar panels, blah, blah, blah. He makes it to the fucking thing, and they're like, he's going to have to take off a bunch of weight from this in order to make it into the right orbit or the right trajectory to meet up with the Hermes. And so they have this whole scene where they're like taking all this stuff off the model and showing it to the director. And part of it is take the nose cone and the windows off and put a tarp over the top so you can fly up there, because the air is thin in Mars.
I hated that part. I remember that part. The tarp. Like, what?
Yeah.
A tarp?
Yeah. You put the tarp just to help not with debris. That part actually makes sense, because for one, he's going to be in his suit. He doesn't need the pressurization.
I think we're like, this is ridiculous. You're like, yeah, it could work.
No, exactly. Like, he's inside of his suit. You know, so
Okay.
he has his
Yeah.
own pressurization. He doesn't need an atmosphere inside the capsule, and that's mainly what it's for. Because on Mars, the atmosphere is thin enough that it doesn't matter. There's not a lot of drag on the surface when you're taking off in the rocket.
Okay.
And any losses from that are far outweighed by the amount of weight he's dropped by getting rid of those. And then the tarp just helps mitigate some of that lack of aerodynamic until it gets into a higher thing where the tarp freaks out. And, you know, I don't know if you remember that part, but the tarp starts going all crazy. And
I remember shutting down a little bit just the minute they're like, "Ooh, use tarp." I
yeah.
was like, nah.
But he gets up there and he gets all,
Yeah,
he
I
like
guess it
passes
works.
out or whatever, probably because he's really high. But
Yeah.
really, because
Prozac potatoes.
he experienced high G's or whatever. So, but
Yeah.
there's like this little mini point in the movie where it makes you think like, oh, he's just dead. But oh wait, there's still 15 minutes of this movie left. He can't be. And then he's like,
I
oh
think
yeah,
it's gonna be a long, long time.
Yeah. and suddenly
Like
he's
the
back.
one non-disco song.
Yeah, and he's coming up, and they're gonna be like, I can't remember how many kilometers off. Maybe not close to each other. Not no way that they're gonna be able to rendezvous. No way the ship is gonna be able to do that. They even like blow off part of the ship to like slow down. I think it happens early in the movie, but on the Hermes they like release part of it to like excess all the gas, so that you get a little bit of push to accelerate them in a certain direction. It's ridiculous. They go through all these fucking things, and their final thing is that they're gonna. I can't remember what their initial plan was, but the guy was like, "I'm just gonna poke a hole in the suit in my hand, and I'm just gonna fucking Iron Man over to you."
Yeah.
And the captain's like, "No, I'm putting on my jetpack and the tether, and I'm gonna come get you." And so she fucking puts the jetpack on, goes out. She's going with the tether. This is the part where I get mad because they had a fucking tether the whole time, and no one's
Yeah.
fucking using it. I think there's a scene where they're crawling along the outside of the ship, nowhere near a door, no tether.
Yeah.
What the hell?
How great would that be? That's just like, this isn't a fucking Marvel movie. Like, god damn it.
It's anxiety inducing for me, you know, because I'm sitting there
Yeah.
watching like, dude, I know it's a movie, but you let go and it's gone. You're done.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Nothing you can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then suddenly the captain's using one, and the tether's not even long enough. It's like a fucking 50-foot tether. She can't make it. She doesn't know it's long enough till she gets out to the point where it's not long enough. Like, oh, surprise. So he's like, okay. And he pokes the hole in his fucking hand and jumps out of the capsule and starts like pushing himself by opening and closing the hole in his hand and trying to go over to her. And of course, it's a movie. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hits
All
her.
while
And,
it's playing YMCA.
well, or some random disco song because there's no other fucking songs in this. It's like they bought an ABBA album and just like, hey, we'll use this for the movie.
Gloria Gaynor's I Will Survive.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, there's another note I have in here right before the end is that the suits are pretty like accurate, but they don't seem that far upgraded from what NASA uses right now, which is weird to me a little bit.
Yeah.
We've had these suits since like the 80s,
Yeah.
and we're probably going to do a new iteration on them before we go to Mars.
Yeah.
That's just a little tiny note.
I think I remember you showing me some new suit tests or like examples.
Yeah, and SpaceX's suit design is pretty cool too.
Nice.
But then when he grabs onto her and they spin up in the little tether and they're rescued, they don't show them getting back in the craft besides them just like walking in the airlock and being all happy. And then it cuts to like America, they're in like New York Times Square. Everyone's fucking cheering. Everyone's out on the streets. The whole street's packed. Everyone's
world
watching.
cares.
And then it cuts to fucking China. All China is fucking like, I don't know what a spot in Beijing, packed. People for everywhere watching this
The
fucking
Emperor's
thing.
Palace, probably.
Yeah. Cuts to
Like, in that
London.
open square.
Yeah, it cuts to London. Everyone's watching it there. So it's like, oh, the whole world is sitting there like watching this on the edge of their toes. Like live action. It's
Strike any point in Washington.
hard to believe that many people are going to put their lives on hold because Matt Damon is stuck on Mars.
Yeah, I don't think people that's probably the most unrealistic part of the entire movie. Is just that people would care that much.
Yeah, it
Some
was just a
people would.
weird part in the ending because I think they showed one time before where they were showing something that was out like in New York Times Square, and there's a bunch of people watching, but it's I don't know.
There'd be a bunch of like QAnon people just like, he ain't even up there.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I said no politics. So.
No, no, you're good. But I mean, that's like I'm like semi sure that there's part China funding in this because there's that weird little like stuff going on with China America space programs helping each other out.
Mm-hmm.
But with the American space program being the shitty one, not paying attention to detail. And then for some reason, also the Chinese rocket didn't have to do inspections, but whatever. But then also AOC is like a top 500 Chinese company. It's in the Fortune 500, but it's a Chinese-owned company. And that's very, very heavily laid with AOC all over.
And you know what else? A little bit later, Matt Damon went on to be in a major Chinese film release. It was like he was like a warrior in defending the Great Wall or something.
Oh,
So I wonder if they established a relationship that way.
I mean, possibly, well, because like you said earlier, the Chinese movie industry has like a special way about things, and they've been booming a lot more, I think,
Yeah.
it seems like it's been a little bit bigger. So maybe they're getting like American movie stars to come over and they're cutting deals with them and funding some people's movies that, I don't know.
Yeah, I buy it.
It's just some weird,
I mean, there's
something
always
weird going
like
on with this
Chinese
movie.
scenes in Marvel films now.
Yeah.
And that's Disney, and so we know Disney's going to try to get that Chinese dollar, but
Right.
definitely goes a little further than that.
Yeah,
Which gets into a frustrating area because there's nothing wrong with appealing to an audience that's on another part of the globe. That being said, you don't want your cinema censored.
Yeah.
You want to be able to say what you want to say through your art, and we won't get political, but yeah, they're not big fans of saying whatever comes up in your mind.
Right.
It's like, hey, why don't you edit yourself? Think about that before you say that.
Yep.
So, any final thoughts before we wrap this little review conversation up?
Well, I enjoyed hearing about this movie. I'm gonna have to go watch it now. Then maybe I'll
Yeah.
if I watch it soon, I'll pipe back in and let you know what I think sometime.
I'm sorry I ruined it for you before you watched it.
Well, no,
I think
wanna
you
watch
enhanced it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
What a thing I think we can do when we do this in the future is we're going to try to find other space-themed movies and have Neal watch them. I'm not going to always just go off of my memory. Like, if we find one like Mission to Mars is one we discussed, I need to watch that again, and then we can have a discussion on it. It's not always going to be, I can't remember this movie. Go ahead, Neal. But I do love getting your feedback on these types of films. So what I was thinking of is, and we can kind of spitball this and change it as time rolls on, but let's think of a rating system here. I think we should rate it by 8 planets. 8 planets. That's how many we got in the solar system, right?
What am I rating it by? Because
well, we're going to have a couple things that we rate. 8 planets being it's amazing, it's awesome, it's incredible. 1 planet being terrible. So, in terms of entertainment for you, how many planets do you give The Martian? Yeah.
For me?
Yeah, for you. Entertainment alone.
Probably like 4 or 5 because there's definitely some like cool scenes in there, and I do still enjoy the overall kind of astronaut-y NASA thing,
Yeah. Maybe sneaking through the asteroid belt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the asteroid belt's past Mars, but
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's like a 4 to 5. You might get to Jupiter.
Yeah. No, you're getting into the all right stuff here. Like, this movie could have been all right.
Okay.
So close.
As far as realism goes, how many planets do you give it?
I mean, see, that's a tough one because I want to give it like 2 because it mentions a lot of things that are real, but doesn't do anything that's real.
Oh.
And even like some of the other shows I've been watching, with the one other series I was watching, I was telling you about on the moon, they have like little scenes where something drops on the dust and the dust comes up and falls down in such a way that it would on the moon.
Yeah.
And Mars does have a slightly lower gravity than Earth does.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't, like, I don't know, ever play into that kind of stuff at all.
So
Or
it's
even,
almost as vacuous as their disco reference. It's just like, isn't it funny to say disco is the worst music? And it's just like, is it really?
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
Yeah,
sure.
it's just like, yeah, I get it. It got worn out when it was popular, but
Well, it's like
it's just such a throwaway reference to just throw it down and be like, eh.
Right.
disco.
But then they don't actualize it.
Disco is the music of science. It's like scientifically formulated to get your booty shaking.
Yeah.
Damn right. So let me think if there's any other rating thing or like measurement of this. You've definitely
I mean, I would say in like
made me aware that
engagement.
it's
I was engaged in this movie,
yeah.
you know, not for the best reasons, but I was heavily engaged in this movie.
Okay.
So how was
yeah.
Matt Damon on a scale of Matt Damon to Matt Damon?
Roughly Matt Damon-y. Kind
So
of,
it was like Matt Damon.
yeah.
It wasn't Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Like
No, it was definitely
hardcore.
like, he's Matt Damon. Yep.
Matt Damon was there.
Yep. He's making some jokes. Oh, by the way, he's a botanist and somehow knows a lot about other stuff too.
Jeff Daniels,
Yeah. Remember this guy?
Jessica Chastain,
You've seen this guy in other movies, right?
Ridley Scott.
He's not going to
Yeah,
make
so
any
like-
jokes, though. This guy who's been in funny movies doesn't make any jokes.
His yes was probably pretty funny.
I love that fucking scene, actually. I kind of want to cut that out and use it as like a reaction gif or something.
There you go.
Yeah, it'll be good. So after discussing it, I realized that it didn't have a big impact with me
Yeah.
because I'm like,
What?
what? Oh
I
yeah,
think it probably
I remember tarps, duct tape, Matt Damon. That's all I remember.
And I think this movie is very widely appealing to a lot of audiences, which is another reason why they didn't want to use the word fuck. They wanted everyone to watch this movie, and that's why I kind of think it's almost a cash grab. Because I think this is about the time when we were talking about the Mars One mission, where like people were starting to apply for this company who was going to send people on a one-way mission to Mars in a while.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like, you know, someone read this book and they're like, oh, this book's really fucking great. We should make a movie out of it. And everyone's all into this Mars stuff right now, so we could probably make a fuck ton of money.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it was successful, so
It was.
Cynical Bastards won.
It won an award.
That's what I was just looking up. As I guess we'll kind of wrap it up with this. Is it won Best Picture?
Yeah.
And the other nominees that year. Wait a minute. Really? It beat Spotlight? Damn. It was up against Bridge of Spies, Mad Max Fury Road, The
What?
Revenant, Spotlight, The Big Short, Room, and Brooklyn. I thought The Revenant
Fury-
won that year. Or Spotlight did.
No, the Martian one.
I
What?
thought The Revenant won the year it came out. Wow.
But The Revenant, Leo won for Best Actor.
Yeah. You finally won something.
Spotlight, I could have sworn Spotlight won.
Maybe just someone in that won
Was
something
Matt
big.
Damon in it?
Did Spotlight win a different
might have.
award? Not Film of the Year.
It won Film of the Year without Matt Damon in it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We have to find this out for
Won
sure.
Academy Award for Best Picture.
Holy shit. I need the winners. Kellen, while I'm looking this up, how about you let the people know where they can write us if they want to suggest a space movie or something like that?
Yeah. Got a space movie, got comments, suggestions. We got something wrong in the episode. You can
Other
always
movies
write
too.
us.
I'll watch
Oh, yeah,
non-space
any kind of
movies
movie.
too. I get really distinct about
We're
these.
gonna hang out on space for a while because there's just a lot to tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah. But our email address is fakoshka@gmail. FAKOSHKA@gmail.com.
Nice. So the best picture was Spotlight,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not seeing The Martian anywhere.
Your memory serves correctly.
Leonardo DiCaprio won Best
It
Actor
won-
that year.
It won Golden
Hateful
Globe.
Gold.
Or
Okay.
Best Motion Picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So the Spotlight won Academy Award. The Martian won the Golden Globe.
Okay. All right.
It also won
yeah.
Matt Damon also won the Golden Globe for Best Actor.
Oh.
He also got the Empire Award for Best Actor.
Okay.
Ooh.
But I will say this as a movie geek. Nothing explains the difference between the Golden Globes and the Oscars better
Yeah.
than The Martian won Best Pictures at the Golden Globe and Spotlight won it at the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yes, that's true.
I gotta give a quick shout out. I was looking at this year, The Hateful Eight, Best Original Score.
Oh.
Hell yeah.
And
yeah.
Ennio Morricone is an amazing composer. So just any chance to give him a shout out.
Oh yeah, and
He
I
won
love
Best
that
Original
movie.
Score that year.
And
Oh, yeah.
that oboe part was just so cool.
Oh yeah.
Not oboe, but
All right.
Oh, yeah.
So The Martian, I'm going to say watch it if you're like horny for Matt Damon or potatoes.
Or you just want a decent movie to watch, like with your kids or something. You
know
know?
what?
There you go.
If you,
Yeah.
if you go
It's a
get
fairly
couple,
kid-friendly movie.
if you go get a couple of taters and cook them up Mars style, you might enjoy the movie more.
Get a Vicodin while you're at it. It'll make the movie a lot better.
Yeah.
Give it to your kids and like, hey kids, we're going to watch Matt Damon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been lovely, Neal. You're our first guest on the Jacob Wayne Show, and
Yep.
I can think of a better first guest to have. You're a good buddy of mine. I'm excited to have you on again in the future.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. We'll be glad to come back on. This is fun.
Fucks yeah.
Indeed.
Well, I suppose with that we will sign out, and all of you have a great weekend. Don't discuss politics at all until it's all over. Just go vote and
Just
do
wait.
what's on your mind. Don't talk about it.
Get it done.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Jacob Wayne Show. If you would like to contact us, please write us at fakosha@gmail.com. That is FAKOSHKA@gmail.com. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. Simply search The Jacob Wayne Show and it should pop right up. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. Please write us. It helps add content to the show and makes the show even better for you, the listener. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the